Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and if you're not, you soon will be. And welcome back to World of Tanks with the Mighty Jingles. Today's video, and this is going to be a good one, stars USMC Master Gunner USA, who will be affectionately hereinafter referred to as Gunny, in the British Tier 10 light tank. Yes, it's the Manticore again. He's in a Tier 10 battle here on the Westfield map. He's platooned up with a Leopard 1 and an FV 4005. Clearly he intends to get some monster spotting done in this battle. And I do realise that we've been seeing quite a bit of the Manticore lately, but that actually pleases me because the general opinion of this tank, along with all the rest of the British light tanks when they were first introduced, was that it was a bit of a turd. I'm sure we all remember the infamous promotional bullshit that Wargaming came out with in a painfully transparent effort to try to sell these tanks to the community. Light tanks with battleship guns, and then they gave us a line of tanks with 75 and 85mm guns. And while the Manticore does have a 105mm gun, it's still not a battleship gun unless you're thinking about battleship secondaries. But the gun isn't really what defines the Manticore, even though it definitely does have its own, let's say, personality. More on that in a bit. And while the rest of the... oh, some nice early spots, good stuff. And while the rest of the British light tanks leading up to this are definitely not very good, the Manticore is an exception. You see, when these British light tanks were introduced, they came shortly after the introduction of the armoured cars, and that is a really tough act for any light tank line to follow, because, let's face it, the armoured cars in this game are way better than they should be. But while they do a lot of things way better than any light tank, the one thing that you cannot say about them is that they are particularly stealthy. To scout effectively in an armoured car, you really do need to be very, very aggressive. Now, fortunately for armoured car drivers, and unfortunately for everybody else, particularly light tank drivers, the armoured cars come with a whole kit and caboodle full of crutches to enable even the most mediocre of players to do well in the active spotting role. Oh. Enemy AMX spotted, and clearly he knows he's been spotted, he's backing off. Oh, and the team are down 2 kills already, and unfortunately both of those kills just occurred over here, which means there's nothing between that lot and the base, so Gunny's relocating. He's not going to fight them, but he's going to spot them, so that his teammates on the opposite ridge can fight them. Now, the Manticore can perform as an active scout. In fact, it's actually pretty good in the role. It's never going to be as good as an armoured car, of course. Oh, he got spotted. It wasn't the guys on the ridge, it's probably the AMX on the opposite side of the valley. But notice how he reversed into the bush in order to make precisely this kind of quick getaway in case he did get spotted. And it's just as well he did. Took a shot from across the valley there. But yes, I mean, the Manticore, due to its small stature and its very, very good speed, does actually make a fairly good active scout. But it's never going to beat, there's the Vickers that hit him, it's never going to beat something like an armoured car in that role. But it doesn't have to, because what the Manticore excels at is stealth. I don't know exactly whether or not the Manticore actually does have the best stealth of any high tier light tank in the game. It might, although it's possible that it shares that title with something like one of the French AMXs, but it's certainly very, very good. More than 2,000 spot and damage now. He hasn't fired a single shot from his battleship-sized gun yet. Actually, yeah, let's talk about the gun. It's your classic British 105mm gun. You could argue that this is the tank gun that armed the free world, in the same way that you could argue that the Belgian FN FAL was the rifle that armed the free world during the Cold War. This is an excellent gun. It has great penetration, fantastic accuracy. On this machine, though, it doesn't have a very good reload. I mean, it's really bad. Perhaps that's what Wargaming meant when they said these things had battleship guns, because it definitely has a battleship reload. Other light tanks have their damage output measured in damage per minute. The Manticore has its damage output measured in damage per week. The reload is really bad. Which means that if you're going to shoot at something in this thing, you have to either make sure, A, you are not going to get spotted, and I have to say Gunny's pretty good at that, or 2, you know you're going to kill whatever you're shooting at. because if it gets the chance to shoot back, you're in trouble. Just to put this into perspective for you, the Conqueror has a better rate of fire than this tank, and the Conqueror is a heavy tank, one tier lower, with a 120mm gun. Can somebody kill him, please? Thank you. More spotting damage. 4,000 now. There are other bad things about this gun, of course. Ooh, can somebody kill this guy? Don't want to have to relocate. Yep, thank you, team. Well, the other bad things about this gun aren't really related to the gun itself, more to do with the way that it's mounted into the turret. Actually, it's really more to do with the turret, because this is an oscillating turret. Now, this is the kind of thing that you usually only see on French tanks. It was a real design, it existed. The French AMX 13 series all featured these oscillating turrets. The problem lies in the placement of the ammunition stowage, which is at the rear of the turret. It's that sort of overhang at the back that gives this thing problems. Oh, hello, team. Got another one for you. And, yep, good job. That's 5,500 spot damage now. I think it's fairly safe to say that nobody on the enemy team is going to be particularly keen to continue trying to push this side of the map, if even there is anybody left over there to do it. Yeah, that overhang at the back of the turret makes it extremely difficult, and French tanks have this problem as well. Makes it extremely difficult to get the gun to point up, and that's going to be a problem here. I mean, these tanks have bad gun depression as well, but they have horrible gun elevation. And if you think about it, it's perfectly logical. It's all to do with that overhang, the ammunition stowage there at the back of the turrets. Because if you think about it, if you want the bit at the front of the tank to point up, that means the bit at the back of the tank has to point down. And it can't. It's physically impossible. There's nowhere for that overhang to go. I mean, Wargaming can, and have, given unrealistic gun elevation and depression values to tanks in the past. Look at the Russian LT-432, for example. That thing's turret is so flat, it is physically impossible for it to get the kind of gun depression that the tank is actually capable of. Oh, nice shot, good kill. In order for that thing's gun to depress as far as it does, they would have to have a hatch at the top of the turret for the breech to poke out of when the gun's at full depression. But apparently in this game, laws of physics only apply to British and French tanks. But you can see the kind of contortions that Gunny's having to put this tank through in order to try to get the gun pointing up at targets on the other side of the valley. But this tank is basically physically impossible of shooting at anything unless it's actually on an upward slope, or the target is on basically the same elevation and directly in front of it. I think it's fairly safe to say that this tank... Okay, it's going to take the shot there, didn't need to. This tank has a fairly high skill floor, which means you need to be good to even play this tank. That does of course mean that it has a high skill ceiling as well. Oh, are you kidding me? And it did get him spotted. Oh, and that will be the Object 430U down there. It's probably what saw him, although there's the AMX 105. There are only 2 of them left now, by the way. Just him and the Leopard 1, and they only have 1,200 hit points between them. The reported hit point total of the enemy team is 7,700. Now, we don't know for sure whether or not that's accurate, because you only get it updated when you actually see an enemy tank and you see how many hit points it has. For example, it just updated now down to 4,000 as a couple of enemy tanks got spotted. Going to try his luck here again on the AMX, because that guy really does need to die, and it's a good hit, but, well, wasn't enough. Enemy team's hit point total is now adjusted down to 3,700, which is still a couple of thousand more than the hit points available to Gunny and his platoon mate in the Leopard, who just scored a good hit on the E100, which means he is now a one-shot kill. But maybe not at that range or that angle. Fortunately, the AMX M4 just popped up, so we're going to take a shot at him instead. Probably not going to be a kill, isn't... Whoa, there's the AMX. You sneaky little French bugger. Leopard, thank you. Good stuff. That is an exceptionally useful kill. In fact, that might be the most useful kill of the game, because it has now robbed the enemy team of its scout. And the only thing they have left that's even vaguely scouty is the Object 430U, who was down there by the cap circle. But he isn't anymore. Okay, he's just going to have to kill him and take the hit. And he does take the hit, but he does kill him. Which means, well, notice that he's in no rush to pop out from behind the cover afforded by this tiny scrap of hill here, because you still remain spotted for a couple of seconds after the death of the tank that was spotting you, but that time has now passed, so he's free to pop back up. Does two things here. Has a quick poke to see whether or not he can reacquire any enemy targets. That doesn't happen. He also immediately backs off, doesn't wait for Sixth Sense to go off, backs off, and waits to see if Sixth Sense does go off to give him some idea of where those 3 surviving enemy tanks are. He knows one of them's in his cap circle, so he's going to have to deal with that, but he's got a minute, so he's not really in any rush. He's trying to spot anybody who may be covering the cap circle. When that doesn't happen, it's time to spot the cap itself. Can't see anything from this bush, it's double bush thanks to the tree over there, but as he moves between them, there it is, AMX M4, 54. Leopard takes care of him, there's the 51, Gunny takes care of him. That just leaves the Doom Turtle, who apparently still has more than 2,000 hit points. Well, we're just going to have to see about that. He gets spotted, hit point total adjusts down to 1,600. Leopard bitch slaps him, he's down to 1,100. Gunny not spotted in return, which is going to be really, really bad news for the T-95. Double bushed here, absolutely no possibility that the T-95 is going to see him shooting. Keeps inching forward to ensure that he remains spotted for the benefit of the Leopard. T-95 knows there's something here, but he can't see anything. You almost feel sorry for him. Almost. But not quite. That's nearly 10,000 spotting damage there, due not just to his textbook positioning and passive spotting at the beginning of the match, but also some absolutely spectacular teamwork between Gunny and Diamond 2014 in the Leopard 1, who, thanks to Gunny's spotting, scored nearly 9,000 damage done during the course of that match. That's 9 kills and about 20,000 combined damage between the two of them. With these two around, the enemy team didn't stand a chance. Thank you guys, that was an absolute privilege to watch, and I hope you all enjoyed it, because that's it for today. As always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.